2 weeks away from Christmas, and I couldn't be any more excited. This is episode 315 of #AskGSM here today for Wednesday, December 11th, 2019. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. As I said last week, I was thinking about it this morning. I still have no idea how we're going to record the Christmas episode and the New Year's episode, because that's when hashtag falls on this year, is on Christmas and New Year's Day itself. So what I was actually thinking about last night, and this might sound stupid, but I enjoyed a lot of the questions. I mean, I enjoy all the questions you guys send in, but Brandon sent in a lot of Christmas-related questions, which I fucking love. I mean, I love the wrestling stuff. That's what I fucking ask for when I ask for the questions on Twitter and on Facebook and on YouTube and stuff like that. Obviously, primarily, this is a wrestling show, but I thought we would have some fun with it. So in 2 weeks, what I'm going to try to have you guys do, if you want to, if you would like, if you would enjoy this, if not, just ask the wrestling stuff, because it's going to be a dead period anyway. You know, obviously, Raw will be on that week on the 23rd, probably live, I would imagine. That's well after TLC and all the pay-per-views this weekend. Next week's show will be a bit more, newsworthy after Final Battle and Into the Fire and TLC. Packed weekend coming up for wrestling. But that week of Christmas, there's not going to be really that much going on. I mean, NXT and Dynamite will not have live shows that night. So what I thought we would do for the final episode of 2019, because it will fall on Christmas, is to do a Christmas-themed show. So if you guys can, not for next week, but the week after, send in Christmas-related themed questions. That would be amazing. Favorite Christmas movies, gifts, memories, songs, anything you guys can think of, even things I would want for Christmas, wrestling wishes I would make to Santa for Christmas 2019. Anything Christmas related themed would be amazing. So if not, it's fine, but just a little idea, because we can have some fun with this. I mean, it's not often that the show falls on Christmas. In the 6 years I've been doing this show, I don't think I've ever once recorded an episode on Christmas itself. We always miss the deadline. Christmas was on a Monday 2 years ago, but by that point, hashtag was already on Wednesdays. So never at any point have I done a show on Christmas itself. That will change this year. No days off at all. I will record the show in advance, of course, probably on Monday the 23rd, just because Tuesday the 24th I'll be busy then as well. So all the recording for that week will likely be done on Monday the Monday the 23rd, very likely. But nonetheless, if you guys want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself, and drop your comment down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Before we go any further here, real quick, cheap plug. I have some questions from him here on this episode. But John Ritlin and I will be breaking down TLC and Into the Fire and all the other current happenings going on in the world of wrestling. I know Robert Roode and Primo got suspended yesterday, which is probably the least newsworthy of all the news items this week, but it is worth mentioning. They got suspended yesterday for violating the wellness policy, so they're going to be gone for 30 days. I mean, Primo was already gone anyway, but Robert Roode, we won't be seeing him until the new year. So there was that. We had the releases of The Ascension, Sin Cara, Luke Harper. I talked about that in great detail in an article, actually, for my very own website, nextdaywrestling.net, on Monday morning, late Sunday night, breaking down each release, each departure, where I could see each superstar ending up ultimately. And then also the announcement that Batista and the NWO are going into the WWE Hall of Fame. That happened on Monday morning. So a lot to discuss with John Ritlin. We break all that down on this week's Wrestle Rant Radio. Literally, as soon as I'm done recording this, I'm going to be talking to him for that show. So stay tuned for that this Thursday on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Podbean, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, Google Play, nextdaywrestling.net. We're all over the place, baby. So find the show, subscribe to the show. You will not want to miss this one. So without further ado, let's get started here with today's first question from Brandon A. He said, "What's up, GSM? Of course, I have to address a few Christmas-related items before I get into my question. First of all, going back to the fact that I listen to Christmas music starting November 1st, and you're adamantly against it. I would recommend this song to you if you've never heard it before. The Day After Thanksgiving by Brandon Heath. It perfectly summarizes us two us two being on opposite sides of the spectrum. Yeah, I listened to that song yesterday. I thought I've heard of it before, maybe not. I thought I saw it in someone's Spotify playlist. I don't really remember. But I did listen to it for the first time yesterday. I'm surprised this thing does not have more views on YouTube. It only has around maybe 100,000, and the video's been around on YouTube since 2014. Maybe the song's been around longer. I don't think so. But it was a really good song, and you were absolutely right. That song sums me up to a fucking day. I cannot do anything Christmas related, at least until right after Thanksgiving. Usually December 1st, and I'll get to my other Christmas-related activities recently. But yeah, I am absolutely, as I've said many, 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 many times before, that I will not do anything Christmas-related, whether it be put up lights, get a Christmas tree, listen to the music, watch a Christmas movie until after Thanksgiving. I think Thanksgiving might be a little earlier next year. I might be wrong. With the leap year, I'm not exactly sure how that works out. It was really late this year, so I could see why people would be more anxious to celebrate Christmas early. But the whole November 1st thing, to me, will never not be ridiculous. But that's just my opinion. He also inserted into his comment here, Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. You lost me there, pal. But he continues, and It's a Wonderful Life most certainly is a Christmas movie. I have a very simple explanation to justify my claim. Die Hard is a movie you can watch at any time during the year, and no one would think twice about it. It's a Wonderful Life you would only watch during Christmas time, and you would definitely get the side eye if you watched it at any other time of the year. See, very straightforward and uncomplicated. Yeah, I could see your reasoning there, but first of all, you're wrong, because Die Hard absolutely is a Christmas movie. And I didn't even see the movie for the first time, believe it or not, until 2 years ago. Someone showed it to me, I forgot who, but we watched the movie and I'm like, wow, this absolutely is a Christmas movie. And I could understand people's arguments when I first heard the arguments that Die Hard wasn't a Christmas movie, because you're right, you can watch Die Hard at any time of the year. But people are very head over heels about it during Christmas time because it is a Christmas movie. And I saw people tweeting about this all on Tuesday. Maybe you got this from the CM Punk conversation on Twitter, the back and forth that he had with Eric Young and Nikki Cross and Killian Dane, basically all of Sanity. CM Punk was arguing with on Tuesday before backstage later that night that Die Hard is absolutely a Christmas movie and that It's a Wonderful Life is not. So I will disagree with Punk on one thing. Not the Die Hard thing, because I do agree that it's a Christmas movie. It takes place at a fucking Christmas party, and there's Christmas themes. They say ho, 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 the Santa hats. It's a Christmas movie. They play Let It Snow at the end. It's a Christmas movie. It's a Wonderful Life is also a Christmas movie, probably the quintessential Christmas movie. I see it top a lot of lists about it being the greatest Christmas movie of all time. I'm not exactly sure about that. But it is a Christmas movie nonetheless. Die Hard is too. Now, based off your criteria, yeah, sure, it's not. But that's really only one factor. There is no set criteria for what makes a Christmas movie. Just like there's no set criteria for what makes a Hall of Famer. And I'll get to that later too. With the whole fucking two-time Hall of Famer bullshit, which is so fucking annoying. But the Christmas movie stuff, it's a Christmas movie. There is too many elements in the movie of Die Hard that make it a Christmas movie. Yeah, you could watch it at any other time of the year, but you could also watch fucking Why Him at any other time of the year because it's a really funny movie. You could watch it well after Christmas, and you wouldn't be, looked at differently. But it's a Christmas fucking movie because it takes place during Christmas time, and it's all about the family coming together for Christmas. Not the quintessential Christmas movie, but it's still a Christmas film nonetheless. I'm trying to think of other examples. But I can see what you're getting at there. But just because you can watch it at any other time of the year doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a Christmas movie. So I won't go so far as to say that, just because Die Hard has Christmas elements, that must mean that Harry Potter is a Christmas movie too, because they have that one scene that takes place during Christmas, which is absolute bullshit. I don't see that for one single second. They have one scene in Harry Potter where they celebrate Christmas. So in Deadpool 2, he's with his girlfriend on Christmas for what? 2 seconds? They're having sex or something? So does that make that a Christmas movie? No. Die Hard is not one single scene where it's Christmas Day. The whole thing is centered around a Christmas party. And I saw some silly arguments, and again, criteria is different for everyone, that Die Hard wasn't a Christmas movie because there was no Christmas miracle and there was no Santa. Like, get the fuck out of here. Is that what makes a Christmas movie? And if so, I want no part of that shit. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, just because it has to have a Christmas miracle or a Christmas, lesson learned? No. Whoever said that? I would love to see the Holy Bible on Christmas movies and the line about that. It's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. And if that's what makes a Christmas movie, I want no part of it. Because that sounds ridiculous. Because there's a lot of Hallmark Channel movies. They are a lot of Christmas movies, okay? And all of them have, lessons learned, but they're all the same shit. They all have the same Christmas miracle with a guy getting with the girl at the end. That's it. That's what every fucking movie on that channel is. So if that's what Christmas movies are supposed to be, then that's absolute shit. Like, I guess Christmas Vacation obviously Christmas is in the fucking title. That doesn't really have a Christmas miracle of any sort. There's no Santa in that movie except for the animated version in the first few minutes of the film. Other than that, though, that's, not a Christmas miracle or, I could see the Santa Claus. That's a typical Christmas movie. Home Alone isn't really a Christmas miracle. Is that a Christmas movie? Because it has nothing really to do with Christmas. It takes place during Christmas. I guess if you're using that logic, you can watch Home Alone whenever. Because it's a good movie, and it doesn't have a lot to do with Christmas. Because they're breaking into his house around Christmas time, but there's no Santa Claus. You know what I mean? I know we've gone on this question for a lot longer than I anticipated, and probably a lot longer than you guys would want me to. But I got to settle that argument once and for all. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, even if they're wrong. And that wrong opinion is that Die Hard is not a Christmas movie, because it absolutely 120% is. His next question here. He said, last week you talked about how you were trying to watch a Christmas movie every day this month. Have you continued that? And if so, what have you watched? So I have. I'm going to pull up the document right here because I'm organized this shit. Let's see. Christmas movies 2019. And some of these you're probably going to laugh at me. But I put together a list of 25 plus movies in case I skipped one or whatever of Christmas movies I intended to watch at least one day throughout the month. And so far, I've stuck to it, which is pretty impressive considering it's the 11th. And when I tried to do this 2 years ago, I had to stop, I think, on the 9th or 8th or whatever because I had a wedding to go to. Thankfully, I'm not as busy this month. It will be getting busier as Christmas gets closer. Very jam-packed month. But still, I've stuck to my promise of watching at least one Christmas movie a day since technically November 3rd, because my brother and I watched Why Him, which I just got done talking about, and that was a great movie too. Very funny with Bryan Cranston and that other dude, the Green Goblin, the interview dude. I forgot what his name was. Jesus Christ, it's gonna bother me. Let's look it up right now, because if I don't figure this out now, it's gonna bother me. Movie. Let's see. Why Him cast. I know his name. Oh, James Franco, of course. How could I forget that? And Keegan-Michael Key. But, yeah. So the movies I've watched every day in the month of December so far for Christmas season include Why Him on November 30th, the animated Grinch movie on December 1st, the one that came out last year, not the original. There's a lot of movies I did not include in my list, like It's a Wonderful Life. You're probably going to stop listening now after hearing that, but I just don't really watch that every year. It's not a movie I've gone out of my way to watch, personally, but that's just me. So The Grinch that came out last year, it's on Netflix. I watched that on December 1st. The Polar Express on December 2nd. December 3rd was Office Christmas Party. I thought that was a great movie, and Alexis had never seen it before I showed it to her on that day, and she really enjoyed it as well. December 4th, I Am Santa Claus, the Mick Foley documentary, which was fucking great. If you've never seen it, absolutely go out of your way to watch it. It was really, really good. It's on Amazon Prime Video, so if you have Amazon Prime, you can watch it. If not, you can rent it for a couple bucks. A Christmas Carol, the Disney animated version. That's on Disney Plus. No, it's not on Disney Plus, actually. It's currently on Xfinity because they have the rights to it until like November of next year. So I watched it on Xfinity Free Movies in November. Or no, the deal runs up in November. I'm sorry. I watched that on December 5th. The one that's voiced by the real life Grinch guy, fucking Jim Carrey. That one, the Jim Carrey Christmas Carol from 2009. I want to say. Yeah, I watched that. Psych the movie. people probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but it was the movie that came out for that show Psych from USA Network. It premiered 2 years ago. That is a Christmas movie. It doesn't have a ton to do with Christmas itself, but it takes place during Christmas time. Again, the whole shebang like I just got done talking about. That's available on USA Network's app, like on Roku and Amazon Fire Stick and stuff like that. Great movie. I love the Psych show, so I love watching that movie. I have every year since it premiered 2 years ago. Klaus, which is a new Netflix film, I think. So that day, funnily enough, Alexis and I had watched Daddy's Home, because I, for whatever reason, thought that was a Christmas movie. I thought that Mark Wahlberg's character came to the house of Will Ferrell's family, his character, because it was Christmas time and they were getting together for the holiday season. I totally forgot that was the premise of the second film, not the first one. The only scene in the first one that's Christmas related is when Will Ferrell dresses up as Santa Claus to kind of one-up Mark Wahlberg. But it's not actually Christmas, it's April. So that's not a Christmas movie. And I didn't realize that until halfway through. I'm like, shit. I mean, I had to watch it anyway. I didn't have to, but we're going to watch the second one at some point later on this month, because that is a Christmas movie. That does take place during Christmas. So I guess it was better to watch the first one. So right after that night, on Saturday, I think it was, we watched Klaus right after that, which is that new Netflix movie about like the mailman who works with Santa. It's a very good twist on the typical Santa story, and I really, really enjoyed it. It was great stuff. Sunday, we watched The Nightmare Before Christmas. I don't really watch that every year, but it is available on Disney+, so I thought I would check it out. And of course, the last 2 days, Home Alone on Monday before Raw, and then Home Alone 2 last night as well. And I think tonight, I'm either watching some like Disney Channel original Christmas movie, like The Ultimate Christmas Present. If you didn't grow up on Disney Channel, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. The Ultimate Christmas Present, might watch that later, or 'Twas the Night, also with Bryan Cranston, an old Disney Channel original movie, which is hilarious considering we went on to do like Breaking Bad and shit like that. But yeah, he was in a Disney Channel original Christmas movie about 20 years ago, and it's hilarious. And if not either of those two, then probably The Santa Claus with Tim Allen. We'll watch that later with Alexis. So also on the list to watch this month for those curious, Die Hard, because it is indeed a fucking Christmas movie. It's free on the Crackle app if you're curious. Christmas with the Cranks, a guilty pleasure of mine. I watch it every year. I have watched it every year now for like 5 or 6 years. I fucking love Christmas with the Cranks. It's such a dumb movie, but I enjoy the hell out of it. So absolutely Christmas with the Cranks. We also have Jingle All the Way. Enjoy those movies. The Santa Claus 2, The Santa Claus 3. Christmas Vacation, one of my all-time favorite movies, period. That's an amazing movie. Elf, Fred Claus, and How the Grinch Stole Christmas are among them as well. Krampus, Daddy's Home 2. Some movies I'll be watching in the remainder of the Christmas season in 2019. If for some reason the streak is broken, if anything, it would probably break in about a week and a half. I got a lot of stuff going on the weekend before Christmas, including RJ's engagement party, which we may not be able to make it to due to a car issue, but we will soon see. But with that being said, I'm trying to stick to my pattern of watching a Christmas movie every day throughout December. So far, I've stuck to it, so ask me again next week to see if we've continued on that streak, if the streak is still alive at that point. So let's see. Next question. I know we've spent 20 minutes on just Christmas stuff, so I apologize, but I'm very passionate about the holiday, if you couldn't already tell. So anyway, his next question here. All right, Wrestling Tom. I have thoroughly enjoyed AEW and plan on attending the January 29th show in Cleveland next month. There is a flaw that I am starting to see regarding their win-loss ranking system, though. I will use Le Champion, Chris Jericho, to illustrate my point. Jericho wins a lot. Good. He should win a lot as a strong champion. During his tenure as champ, he has also beat quality contenders and may continue to do so if his reign continues. Therefore, he continues to win matches and against highly ranked opponents, making his wins quality wins. Now, let's look at when he finally loses. He will most likely lose to a very good opponent who is highly ranked. That means the loss he will suffer will not really be a bad loss to a bad opponent. So if he wins a lot, beats good opponents, and loses his championship to a good opponent, that means he will still be ranked very highly once he is no longer champion. Now, I'm pretty sure AEW does not want to fall into the constant championship rematch trope, However, according to AEW's own rules about wins and losses and quality of wins and losses, Jericho should be number one contender for a long time, even when he finally loses. So how would you justify continuing to deny him multiple title shots once he loses, when his win-loss record will still probably be better than anyone in the company, on top of having the most quality wins in the company? You would have to actually write good stories justifying others to be different. Write good stories justifying others getting title shots ahead of him and somehow ignore the scoring system that they came up with to be different. You may be able to use the same argument for SCU in the tag team division or Rio in the women's division, particularly in the case that they have long title reigns. Otherwise, people are going to have to drop titles quickly, so their rankings aren't so insurmountable, even when they finally lose. I know that was long, but I want to hear your thoughts on this. Thanks. That's an amazing question, and I completely agree. Honestly, I wasn't even thinking about that. I'm not sure many people were thinking about that because I've heard that argument not brought up at all. But it is an absolute sound argument, unlike the diehard shit. But this is a sound argument, and I completely agree. When Jericho finally loses the championship, now he did lose that tag team match to Scorpio Sky. But aside from that, though, he has not been beaten one-on-one since he came to AEW. He's beaten Cody. He beat Cody. He beat Scorpio Sky. He beat Kenny Omega. He beat Adam Page to win the championship. He's picked up a lot of victories, a lot of credible victories since he came to AEW earlier on this year. So when he finally loses, he'll only have one loss on his record. So you're absolutely right. What's stopping him from being number one in the power rankings? The only other excuse I can come up with is that they're gonna be resetting the win-loss record starting January 1st. That's what one of the Bucks said on Twitter a few weeks ago. They weren't really clear about it. I feel like they're kind of making this shit up as they go along. Oh, the wins and losses, they're going to matter. Like, that's great, but the whole record stuff, like, I feel like in wrestling, it's not that great of an idea. Because you kind of get there. Sometimes you're going to have to tell stories with someone who hasn't won a single match, like Jungle Boy, which I'll get to momentarily, beating a guy like Jericho. And how would that make any sense if Jericho's been undefeated and Jungle Boy hasn't won a single match? Even if he beats Jericho, what is he going to skyrocket to number one in the rankings? Again, the only thing I think is stopping that is the fact that they will likely be resetting their win-loss records in January. Personally, I would do it after Double or Nothing, because that's when the records technically started earlier on this year. I think to reset them so soon is a little silly, just because they haven't been in business for even a year yet. So to reset them on January 1st, I'm not a big fan of, because they didn't have their first show until May. So I think that's a little stupid. So Jericho will go back to 0 losses, 0 wins, and 0, tag team losses, 0 draws, whatever. I'm not a big fan of it. I can see the pros and cons of having power rankings and win-loss records and statistics and stuff like that. But in circumstances like this, it just doesn't really work, because I completely agree with what you're saying. If he goes undefeated as champion for a long time, and he's already held the belt for almost 4 months, then what's stopping him from getting constant rematches when he drops the championship at some point? Another issue with this, a few things actually that I've thought about. One, why is Cody still in the power rankings? If he gets back to number one, say he wins more matches, and he gets back to number one, what the fuck does that even mean if he can't go for the world championship anymore? Why is he even in the power rankings? Why did they even add that stipulation that he can't go for the championship? To add heat to the MJF feud? I mean, I guess, and it worked, but it's kind of silly, because Cody will be winning that world championship at some point, and he never even went for it before prior to the pay-per-view, so I thought that was a little stupid. But, how do you explain your way out of that? Why is Cody even in the rankings if he can't go for the championship anymore? Also, come January 1st, even after they reset the records, you're going to be bringing in more people. Say Marty Scurll, I think he's debuting in AEW sooner rather than later, but say he comes in the middle of 2020. You'll have a 0-0-0 record, with maybe 1 win if he wins his debut match. That's nothing compared to everyone else who's been wrestling since the start of the year, who's been wrestling, since January 1st on Dynamite and pay-per-views and stuff like that. He'll have a terrible record. How do you explain Marty Scurll getting any sort of a championship shot if he has no wins and no losses and no draws? Because he arrived in the middle of 2020. I'm not saying just specifically him. This could go for really anybody. So there's a lot of issues that either need to work out or just, I honestly see this thing fading away at some point because it will get to a point where it just doesn't make any sense. And it's going to be hard to ignore the issues that come along with it. I mean, again, there are pros because it makes the wins and losses more legitimate. It makes them win more, of course. I'm not saying they have to have records. I mean, it makes them different from WWE, sure. But there's a reason no other company has done something like this because it raises issues with storytelling in wrestling where that stuff's not real. You know, where the wins and losses don't actually matter because it's all fucking scripted. And you have to tell a good story. Sometimes the ultimate underdog will have to be a dominant champion. It just has to happen sometimes. Otherwise, it's going to be fucking boring as shit, you know? That's what makes wrestling so magical, so exciting, so fun. So they need to work that shit out. I mean, again, you can make wins and losses matter without doing a win-loss record. WWE, they'll just do dumb shit. Like I was reminded recently of when I was watching the backstage show last night, how Finn Balor beat AJ Styles at that TLC pay-per-view 2 years ago, and then the very next night got jobbed out to Kane. What fucking sense does that make? You know, like that's stupid. The win over AJ was completely rendered irrelevant because he had lost to Kane 1 night removed from beating AJ Styles clean. It made absolutely no sense. So, again, WWE doesn't take that shit seriously. AEW can, and they have so far, but you can do that without the wins and loss record because it just gets to a certain point where it's hard to buy into and it's hard to it just doesn't make much sense. Elena the Y from YouTube. Cody's promo on AEW was good and all, but MJF had just as good, if not a better promo that explained that he was the one who paid off the Blade, the Butcher, and the Bunny trio to attack him that for some reason never got referenced on Dynamite. You have to go on social media to find MJF's 2-minute promo, and I have trouble figuring out why. Like, that's a significant info regarding a main event level feud, and not even the Bunny's own promo mentions that one detail. So yeah, I was stunned by that too. I heard about that promo, I think from Solomonster's podcast on Sunday, because I follow them on social media, but I'm not subscribed to their YouTube channel or anything like that, so if it went up there, then I wouldn't have seen it. But they did air it actually on Dark, and it was a great promo. RJ actually texted me about it this morning, and I totally agree it was a great promo. The issue is that they should be airing that shit on Dynamite, because not everyone watches AEW Dark. It's like airing why Rollins aligned with AOP on fucking Main Event. Maybe not that bad, because Main Event is obviously a lot of people watch Main Event, a lot less people watch Main Event than AEW Dark. AEW Dark is a lot more important to their company than Main Event is to WWE. But still, the point still stands. How do you not air that shit on your flagship show where the most amount of people will see it? Because people are still wondering, what was the whole fucking point of the Butcher, the Bunny, and the Blade bullshit? I think it's still a dumb gimmick regardless of what the motivations were behind them attacking Cody. But yeah, I don't know how that doesn't make it to their actual show. That stunned me too. Speaking of the Butcher, the Bunny, and the Blade trio, AEW commentary desperately needs to get better at introducing wrestlers. I've accepted how Jim Ross is in the modern day, but Excalibur really needed to come through with a more elaborate description than "It's Blade and the Butcher and the Bunny." JR has been established as old and disinterested. At this point, what's Excalibur's excuse? Yeah, I saw a lot of people take issue with that, and I completely agree. It was just fucking embarrassing. And again, Cody went on to reference either in his promo, I think it was Cody, and maybe someone else too, that he knows of the Butcher and the Blade, like they did good work and Beyond Wrestling. I have never heard of these guys before now. I guess the Butcher and the Blade, I don't know who the fucking Butcher is, but I know the Blade is Braxton Sutter, who was in Impact for a year or two with Allie, who he's legitimately married to. I don't know if she was ever a part of the act in other promotions. They never did this shit in TNA, because it's a stupid act. I mean, maybe the guys can go in the ring like the Dark Order, who I'm finally starting to care about somewhat through the videos that are airing for them on the show. There's way too many dark characters in stables, though, and I'll get to the stable shit in a second, because I think Elena also asked about that. But, yeah. I don't know how Excalibur goes, "It's the Butcher, it's the Blade, it's the Bunny," without ever once explaining that he knew them from another promotion. That's probably where he got it from, in his mind. Because I guess Jim Ross went on Twitter and said, yeah, we were instructed to not know who these guys were. So the fact that he's out there yelling completely off the same page as Jim Ross, not just two totally different books, I guess. Going out there and saying that he knows who they are and it's such a big deal. It fell as flat as a fucking pancake. This was, it was embarrassing. It was an embarrassing angle. The crowd just didn't care, nor should they have, because it was a flat debut. It was a lame debut, and the commentary didn't make it any better. If anything, it hindered it, because it made fucking Excalibur look like an idiot for knowing who these guys were, but not explaining how he knew them. If you knew them from beyond, just say that. It's not illegal to mention another promotion on your show. And they have before, so I don't really know what that was all about. That was very confusing. Kind of an embarrassing moment for the commentary team. Again, WWE has shit like that happen all the time. Not exactly to that extent. So I can't say, AEW's commentary sucks. I love the commentary. I think Tony Schiavone was desperately missed on that one episode of Dynamite. But I thought that was just a very weird moment. Elena's last question here. So who isn't in a stable on the AEW roster? 10 episodes in, and we have 3 separate goth cults, the Dark Order, the Nightmare Collective, and the BBB Trio. Well, every other group is a comedic gathering, whether it be the Elite, the Inner Circle, SCU, Jurassic Express. I know AEW Dynamite is like a successor to WCW Nitro, but this is ridiculous. I completely agree. There's way too many fucking factions. And you know how I know that? Alexa said the exact same thing. She's not as much of a hardcore fan as I am. She's not as much of a hardcore fan as you are. She watches the shows every week for the most part with me. We haven't really watched Dynamite in a while. We'll probably watch it tonight over NXT Live, because we only have time to watch one tonight. Together. I'm going to watch NXT after the fact by myself, but we're probably going to watch Dynamite. But she said that last night while we were watching AEW Dark. She goes, they have a lot of factions. And you know what? I know WWE does too, between, they have the New Day, they have the Rollins AOP thing now, Undisputed Era, Forgotten Sons. They have a lot of stables too. But that's between 3 brands. On the same show, it's fucking ridiculous. And a lot of these stables aren't even that good. The Dark Order are good in the ring. Their promos are getting better. Not the promos, but like the vignettes they've been airing for them recently are kind of cool, I'll admit it. But the Nightmare Collective shit, that was a botch. They're just terrible. They're awful. The BBB Trio, terrible. Give no shits about those guys. I mean, then they have the Elite and the Inner Circle and SCU and Jurassic Express and this group and that faction and that stable. It's too much. It's too much. Again, it's a little too WCW for me. Because they got to cool it off with the fucking multi-man tag team matches and the multi-woman tag team matches, because I just don't care. It doesn't make me care about these people any more than I would otherwise. Just give me a singles match between 2 people. I don't need the multi-man tag team matches. Save that shit for down the road. One thing I really like about NXT, among other things, is they don't do a lot of multi-man tag team matches. Now, they have recently, with the OC being on NXT, they faced Ciampa Lee and, who was it, Matt Riddle, I think. And then recently, I think it was last week, Dominic Dijakovic, Lee, and Ciampa faced the Undisputed Era. But that's a rarity that you get 6-man tag team matches like that. We don't really get that. We never get that with the women, first of all. It's very rare that we have a multi-women tag team match, aside from what we saw at War Games. With the men, it's also very rare that we see that. We see that on Dynamite every fucking week. It's great they have a great tag team division. It blows NXT's out of the water. But they just do way too many tag team matches in one given week. I know the Bucks are very high on tag team wrestling, and if they want to face Santana and Ortiz, that's great. But to have the entire Inner Circle versus fucking Kip Sabian and this dude and that dude is just too much. Week after week, between Dynamite and Dark, it's way too much. Stephen R. from Facebook, his first question was here. His only question, rather. Should Seth Rollins start his own heel faction, maybe with some guys that need a push? I mean, he kind of already has, right, with AOP, which I like a lot. It gives Rollins something to do. And Rollins has always kind of worked best with people around him, whether it was the Shield, the Authority, J&J Security. There's a lot of different examples, and he was great on his own as a babyface, but as a heel, he works great when he has, like, henchmen, or he has people that his opponents can go after or beat up or whatever. Not that AOP is going to be the punching bags for Seth Rollins, but they can be his heavies, and I like that a lot, because it gives AOP, it puts them in an important position on the show. Because these guys have not been seen in close to a year, really. Aside from the recent vignettes, they have not been on the show together in almost exactly 1 year. Probably 1 year from this coming week, if not this week, actually. Because they lost the Raw Tag Team titles to Rude and Gable, and then one of them got hurt. I think actually before that, which is why they dropped the titles. And then we didn't see them on TV together for a very long time. So, again, I'm glad that they're back. I'm glad that they're doing something of importance with Rollins. I like it a lot. I do like the pairing of Rollins with AOP. There's no real reason to add in anyone else, or to do anything, whatever, to add in anyone else or for it to be anyone else. I like the pairing of Rollins, AOP a lot, so that's the faction you're probably looking for. If you don't like it, tough shit, I guess, but I thought it was cool. At Thomas_B96 from Twitter, his question was, would Brody Lee, a.k.a. Luke Harper, be a good fit in AEW? Absolutely. I think Brody Lee would be perfect in AEW. So what I want to see him do, ideally, is kind of try out the indies, kind of do what Moxley did, where Moxley had that great run of the independent scene last year, where he's still kind of working with New Japan to a certain extent. He's facing Lance Archer. Not Lance. Is it Vance or Lance? I think it was Lance in WWE. It's Vance now, New Japan. He's facing him at the Wrestle Kingdom show, in like a Texas Street Fight or some shit like that, for the U.S. Championship, which is pretty cool. The title he never actually lost because he had to vacate it due to a storm concern or something. But anyway, do something along those lines where he doesn't sign a contract with AEW right off the bat when he's contractually not obligated to, but he's contractually free, and he's able to. I would like to see him do some shots with NWA Power if they're still thriving by the springtime of 2020, which I'm sure they will be. NWA Power. It'd be cool to see him in Ring of Honor for a one-shot, even though their buzz is at an all-time low. It would be cool to see him. I don't know if he ever actually did Ring of Honor before coming to WWE. I'm pretty sure he did, if only briefly. But Ring of Honor, New Japan, absolutely. Have some run on the, have some matches on the independent scene, and then go to AEW ultimately. And I saw that picture that Marty Scurll took with Luke Harper at some point. I forgot when the picture was taken, but he posted it on his Instagram. And I love the idea. And again, they're better on their own. I think Luke Harper can do. I'm kind of tired of seeing him in a henchman role or a sidekick role. But I think it'd be amazing to see Luke Harper not reform, but like have villain enterprises in AEW with Marty Scurll. Brody King and PCO, I think they're going to be sticking around with Ring of Honor for the long haul, at least for the foreseeable future, as far as I know anyway. But when it comes to Scurll, him and Brody Lee can be their own villain enterprises in AEW. I think that'd be pretty fucking cool. But again, they could also bring in Brody and have him be his own person, which is probably the best bet because people are going to be hot for him when he first shows up because the guy's great and they've been sick of seeing him just be wasted for years now. So, he would be a great fit in AEW. At noob_n_co1991, their question was, what are your thoughts on what Corey Graves said about Charlotte Flair on WWE after the bell? Do you think Charlotte should take a break from wrestling, and who do you think will be the next top female star in the WWE women's division? So a lot of questions rolled into one there. With the Graves comments about Charlotte from after the bell, if you didn't catch it, I don't listen to the podcast. I saw the clip on the WWE YouTube channel, and I tweeted out, this is probably one of the more ridiculous things I've heard in a while, where Graves had said that Charlotte is underutilized right now. She deserves better, was the title of the video, that Charlotte Flair deserves better in WWE. Corey Graves is not too happy with how she's been booked recently. Oh, she lost the handicap match. She's being buried. Shut the fuck up. I was so annoyed after I heard that. And I like Corey. I really do. I'm one of his last real defenders. I like Corey a lot. I think I enjoy his commentary. But this was a desperate opinion for the sake of just getting clicks on his podcast that probably no one listens to. But, still, this is a really dumb take. A really fucking dumb take. To say that Charlotte Flair is being, buried. He didn't outright say that, but he was kind of implying it, that she should be in the title picture all the time, that he's not feeling Charlotte in the tag team division. Get the fuck over it. I think the tag team stuff, and I said this months ago, is the best possible call for Charlotte right now. Now, I agree. I was saying a year or two ago when Charlotte wasn't even on the show, and earlier this summer, too, because she, the feud with Becky ended, and then she was kind of on TV, but not really until she resurfaced for that feud with Trish in time for SummerSlam, which was great, and the match was really good. I was saying then, too, it's a little weird they're not using Charlotte, but I'm not saying, put her in the title picture. It's not necessary. It's not fucking necessary. Charlotte's great. She has 10 titles, to her credit. 10, count them, 10, 1-0 titles to her championship resume in WWE. There is absolutely no reason for her to be back in the championship picture anytime soon. I thought that was so fucking dumb. And I had people agreeing with Corey Graves. I saw people agreeing with what Corey had to say about Charlotte. I agree. She should be a prominent player in the women's division on whatever brand she's on, but she doesn't always have to be going for the Raw or SmackDown Women's Championship. That's how people kind of grew to hate Alexa Bliss, because she was constantly in the title picture for so long, for like 2 straight years, that people were like, okay, we got to move on to fresher faces here. Same with Charlotte. I'm not saying she should never again win the Raw Women's Championship. I'm not saying she should never again be the SmackDown Women's Champion. Just not right now. There's no reason for it to happen right now. She and Becky have feuded for the better part of the past year and a half. I don't want to see them feud again anytime soon, if ever again. Their matches were great in 2018. The feud probably should have ended at Evolution, but they continued it anyway. To have them team up for the tag titles, that's great. I'll talk about the tag team title match in a second with the Kabuki Warriors at TLC. But there's no reason. First of all, there's no reason for Becky to be in that spot. It should be Charlotte and Natalya, which is what it was originally. Becky may make the match more exciting. If it's without Becky, let's face it, the match is not a TLC match. It's just not. Because Natalya is boring as shit. But Charlotte and Natalya make more sense as partners because they're both multi-generational wrestlers. They beat the Kabuki Warriors on an episode of Raw a month ago that was never referenced again because Natalya missed that episode of Raw and Becky got a title shot. They've already gotten a title shot and lost. So I'm not really sure what the point of this match is aside from the Kabuki Warriors challenging Becky and Charlotte to a match themselves. And WWE not having anything else for Becky to do right now. If this leads to Becky and Charlotte again for the Raw Women's Championship, I'm fucking done. Because I'm so over that feud. We need fresher faces in the title picture. Charlotte is not being buried. She's not underutilized. If anything, she's overpushed. She's great. I'm going to be the first one to admit it. She is an excellent women's competitor. She is absolutely in the conversation of the best women's performers they've ever had in this entire company's history. There's no doubt about it. Not only the 10 championships, but great match after great match after great match has beaten the best. Main evented WrestleMania. Lost, but main evented WrestleMania. And has had way more, 10 times the amount of amazing matches that Trish did. May not feel like as much of a star as Trish was, but she comes close. So she is an all-time great, absolutely, and she's still kind of forging that legacy after almost 5 years on the main roster, which is kind of scary to see how much more she'll accomplish in the years to come. She'll easily pass her dad's record. There's no question about that. Of 16 championships won in WWE. She'll probably pass it before John Cena does. But anyway, she's not being buried. Shut the fuck up with that nonsense. She's been in the title picture now for the better part of 4.5 years. She was the Divas Champion for like over 8 months. She was the Raw Women's Champion for the better part of 2016. She was, you didn't really do a lot in 2017. You know, she lost the Raw Women's Championship to Bayley. Didn't win another title until she won the SmackDown Women's Championship from Natalya later on in the year after taking time off because of her father's health. She held that championship for a while. She beat Asuka at WrestleMania, ended the undefeated streak of Asuka, which she shouldn't have, but did at WrestleMania 34. A great match. You know, lost the championship, got it back for a cup of coffee many months later, had the feud with Becky, won 3 titles this year. None of her reigns exceeded like a month, but she had 3 championship reigns. Not even exceeded a month, exceeded like 3 weeks. But anyway, you know, she's not being buried, so anyone arguing that she is can just shut the fuck up. And again, I said earlier, everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but that is absolutely one of the dumbest takes I've ever heard. You could argue that, yeah, she should be positioned more prominently on the show, but she's on every episode of Raw anyway. It's not like she's not on the show. She's been on the show more than the fucking Raw Women's Champion. Oh, she lost to the Kabuki Warriors. Like, get over it. Get the fuck over it. That pissed me off so much when I fucking heard that bullshit. At Iwagu, or I'm sorry, the other part of his question, I forgot to answer that. Should she take a break from wrestling? No, there's no reason for her to take a break. She's still doing great work, and they need the star power. God forbid, they need the star power. They need Ronda Rousey back first and foremost, but they need Charlotte. Even though there's no fresh feuds for her left, really. I mean, she's faced and beaten everybody for the most part. But yeah, they need Charlotte. She should not take a break. But who's the next top female star in the WWE Women's Division? Probably either Rhea Ripley or Shayna Baszler. No one from the current crop of women stands out to me as being, oh, that's the next girl. Like, if you said that to me about Becky, I would have laughed in your face, because she is great, but they already gave her a couple shots, and they never really saw her as being on that level. You know, when she first came into the company in 2015, 2016, she had a few championship reigns, but nothing overly memorable, until, you know, she became the man a year ago, and it took off from there. but no one else really stands out as being overly special. They had the 4 horsewomen. Natalya is just beaten like a dead horse at this point. She's been all over the show for over a decade. I'm sick of seeing her. Ember Moon is really good, but she hasn't really clicked yet, and that has more to do with the booking than her, but she doesn't really stand out to me as being the next star when she's healthy enough to compete again. The Iconics, no. Nia Jax, absolutely not. Lana's terrible. Ruby Riot's really good. She doesn't really stand out to me as being the next top star in that women's division. Lacey could be there at some point. Doesn't really feel that way quite yet. Alexa Bliss, no. Nikki Cross, no. Who's good in the ring, but just, not really. Carmella, no. Dana Brooke, no. Honestly, you have to look to NXT. Either Baszler, who had the underwhelming Survivor Series main event, sure, but she's a star. She's been booked like a star in NXT. And she's done really well for herself. So either Sheena or probably Rhea. She has worldwide appeal again. If they can book her properly, the same way that NXT has booked her to be this one-woman wrecking crew, then she will get over very well for herself on the main roster at some point. At Iwagu91, your thoughts on Ring of Honor this year? Probably the worst year in Ring of Honor's history. I don't know if that can be argued, because you look back, excuse me, you look back at their history since 2002, and they had a lot of buzz for those first few years as being an alternative to WWE, and even Impact to a certain extent. And that, that momentum they had continued for a long time. Now, a lot of people have not been watching Ring of Honor in recent years. I actually got into it really, really late. I got into Ring of Honor in 2015. I started watching a little bit in 2014. I fell off and then got back into it in 2015. And I've really enjoyed the product. I mainly watched it at that time for AJ Styles because he was doing some shots there for them on occasion, which was cool, up until he left for WWE at the end of 2015, early 2016. But still, I watched it for AJ, I watched it for Adam Cole, Jay Lethal. Jay Lethal's still there. They just lost a lot of people. After the Elite, it was all downhill from there. It was a year ago this week, actually, that Alexis and I took her brother, and she had never been either, to Ring of Honor Final Battle. She had never been to a Ring of Honor show. We went to G1 Supercard earlier this year, but that was afterward, and he had never been to a Ring of Honor show for sure. They had no idea who a majority of the roster was, yet it was one of the best shows either of them had ever been to. They were raving about it for days after we went there, because it was such a great show. Adam Page and Jeff Cobb. You had Cody and Jay Lethal. That awesome ladder war main event with the Briscoes, SCU, and the Young Bucks. You had Marty Scurll versus Christopher Daniels. A lot of good matches on that show. Really, really fun show. I actually want to rewatch it one of these days on Honor Club. It was just a really fun pay-per-view. And it was all downhill from there because they lost the Elite and they brought in a lot of people in their place. They brought in Joe Hendry, I guess. He does absolutely nothing for me. Jeff Cobb was already there. They brought in PCO, Brody King, who were very good, but they're not like, PCO is, the guy's 50. He's not like, so is Jericho, I guess, but PCO is not Chris Jericho. Roosh, who's great. He's not, he actually, you know what? He is really, really good. He's been a great get for them. As has Bandito and the other Lifeblood dudes, Mark Haskins and Tracy Williams, people like that. But still, even with those additions to their roster, they've had zero buzz in 2019. All the backstage issues, a lot of departures, even more people probably leaving soon. Marty Scurll's likely on his way out. Just a lot of issues with Ring of Honor in 2019. It's been a terrible year for the company. I'm not sure how they're going to rebound. If they can go go out of business in 2020, I really have no idea. It's hard to tell. A lot of people said the same thing about Impact, and they're still here. And they are owned by Sinclair, which is this major broadcasting company. But the show is just getting no views, no buzz, nothing. Like, the attendance is at an all-time low. The shows are just terrible. Like, at least you can count on the shows in recent years for great wrestling. You haven't even gotten that at some of the recent pay-per-views. The push of Matt Taven, I love Matt Taven, but his push was a complete waste. No one bought into him as a top talent at all. And he really isn't. He's not Ring of Honor World Champion material. And if he was, they should have given him the title for like a month or two, not fucking like 6 months. That was a little ridiculous, especially when you still had Marty Scurll on your roster. So, bad year for Ring of Honor. Hopefully they can rebound in 2020. His second question, do you see Tommaso Ciampa getting Goldie back? Right away, no. Probably down the road. Tommaso Ciampa has gone on the record and saying that if WWE wants to call him up to either Raw or SmackDown, he'll retire from the ring and just become a producer. Because he has zero desire of wrestling on the main roster. He knows his body is beat to shit, and he knows it's just not a good fit for him. So if he's going to be in NXT for the long haul, I'm sure he will get that belt back eventually. He never lost it earlier on this year, so it only makes sense for him to hold it again. I mean, again, same thing with Finn Balor and the, the Universal Championship years ago, but that was the main roster. NXT's a little different with how they tell stories. He probably will at some point. I would not have him be the one to beat Adam Cole, though. I just don't think he's the right person to do it. But yeah, at some point in the near future when he faces Adam Cole, probably not. At Lavid Poreva from Twitter, their first question was, their only question this week, do you agree that it's too soon to put the belts on Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair? I would rather have Becky and Asuka face off at Royal Rumble. I mean, it's not even just that it's too soon. There's no reason for Becky and Charlotte to be the champions. They already did the dual champion thing. I mean, with Seth, but just recently when he was the Universal Champion, the Raw Tag Team Champion, didn't end well because they dropped the tag titles within a month, probably less than that. And they also did it with Becky herself at WrestleMania earlier this year when she was the Raw and SmackDown Women's Champion for like a month and a half. So, and that also did not last long. But yeah, there's no reason for them to win the championships. I'd have no issue with Charlotte and Natalya being the tag team champions. I think they're just a better team. And Charlotte and Becky just have issues with each other. It just doesn't make any sense for them to win the titles. And the Kabuki Warriors, quite honestly, have been doing amazing work as heels recently. They've really found their footing as heels. Have had great matches on NXT, the pay-per-views on Raw and SmackDown. There was no reason for them to lose anytime soon. So the match should be great. It should be the main event of that pay-per-view. It probably won't be. It should be. It won't be. But yeah, all roads should lead to Becky and Asuka, too, at the Royal Rumble in January. Because it makes perfect sense. I mean, that was where Becky and Asuka faced off the first time, and Asuka won. So if you want to give away, not give away the match, but do the match, do it at the Royal Rumble. There's no other person in that Raw Women's division who makes as much sense to face Becky for that title right now than Asuka. Kairi Sane already faced Becky, I think lost to her. Nia Jax could be back soon, but no thanks. Ruby Riott could be back soon, probably not before the Rumble, if anything at the Rumble itself. And no one else really stands out as being deserving of a title shot. So again, I would have it be Asuka at the Royal Rumble pay-per-view in January. At RJ_Marceau, Mr. Marceau's first question was, do you think the rise of cell phones has ruined the live crowd aura? I rewatched the Raw from 2002 before cell phones were big, and it seems like without any distractions from phones, the crowd was going nuts for everything. Fans had signs and cameras, that's it. It's definitely a factor in something that doesn't get talked about enough. It's a lot like with social media and YouTube, people really have no desire. It's almost exactly like that argument where, people say, social media and YouTube have taken away from viewership. That's why ratings are at an all-time low because you can just watch the shows online or clips or whatever. Yeah, that's a factor. It's not the sole reason, though. The product just isn't what it was 20 years ago. It was just a totally different time. Same thing with that Raw from 2002. I mean, you could go back to a Raw from 2008 or 2009. RJ was texting me about a tag team match on that episode he was watching with Maven and D'Lo Brown. Okay, so there were no cell phones for the most part back then. The crowds were in everything. Just the product was way hotter at that point. Fast forward 5 or 6, 7 years to 2008, 2009. Cell phones, were around, but they weren't. No one had iPhones at that point for the most part. People had still flip phones. I know I had a flip phone at that point. People weren't on their flip phones every 2 seconds. They weren't on their. I keep botching that word. They weren't on their flip phones every 2 seconds. They were watching the show, but they weren't really as hot as they were 6 or 7 years earlier because the product wasn't as hot and what they were watching wasn't as good. A lot of the matches in 2002 were shit, but a lot of those matches that were shit got the reaction they did because all the other stuff, it trickles down. It's the trickle-down effect where the crowd, if they're hot for one thing, they're hot for the entire show. The crowds were different back then. It was a different demographic. It was before they went PG. So cell phones are definitely a factor. I mean, I know a lot of people that go to these shows, they're just sitting on their phones the entire time. Why even bother going to the fucking show? I'm guilty of it too. I mean, not being on my phone, but technically I am recording video, taking pictures for the, YouTube channel and the website and stuff like that. But beyond that, I try not to go on my phone because I paid good money to be there. Why not just enjoy the live atmosphere as opposed to just acting as if I'm at my house watching the show, Why waste all the money going if you're not even going to pay attention to the action? But, phones are an absolute factor. I completely agree that does not get, enough attention. But it has a lot less to do with that and more to do with the fact the product is just not the same as it was. It's really not, because they can still get the crowd into the matches if they care enough. AEW is a prime example of that. Phones are now more prominent now than any other time in history, yet the crowds for AEW and NXT are white hot because the product is, surprise, surprise, really fucking good. So again, don't blame it entirely on the cell phones, because we have cell phones in 2019, and there's still a lot of hot crowds out there with Dynamite and with NXT. Raw, the show for 3 hours, is just fucking terrible most weeks. Not this week and not really recently, but the show is most of the time a chore to get through. So, cell phones are a factor, but don't think for a second that's the sole reason. His second question, is it just me or is it strange that AEW claims that wins and losses matter, but Chris Jericho is defending his AEW World Championship versus Jungle Boy, who hasn't won a match? I know he could choose, but it seems silly. Also, does the Nyla Rose suspension do anything for you? First, on the Jericho Jungle Boy front, I made a mistake. I don't know if I mentioned this in my review. I probably did on Dynamite for last week. It's so far, it was a week ago, so I won't even correct it now. And I also said this on Wrestle Rant Radio, I think, too, that the match would be a title match. It's not. I misinterpreted it. I misunderstood. It's not a championship match. I thought it was. I thought Jericho said he had one more title match left in him in 2019, not just an contractually obligated match. I thought he said title match, not just a regular match. So that was my bad. So it's not a title match, nor should it be, but it's a good match to do. It's something new. It's something different. It's a nice attraction for that last live show of 2019. For the Nyla Rose stuff, does it do anything for me? No. Nyla Rose herself, suspended or not, does nothing for me. I appreciate the effort they're putting into making her a thing and making her look dominant and unstoppable. I appreciate it, but it's just not working for me because I know she's just not good. She's been working 1 or 2 minute squashes, which is fine for a little while, but it's going to get to a point where she's going to have to work longer matches. And that Rio match wasn't really that good. The closing stretch may have been. The overall match really wasn't as good as people made it out to be. She's not good. I just don't think she has much upside. The commentary in AEW Dark a few weeks ago was fucking terrible. God, she cannot talk for shit. She, if anyone, needs a mouthpiece. Maybe not Awesome Kong. Definitely Nyla Rose. Good God, she is terrible. I'm surprised Brandy Rhodes isn't managing her. She was a big Nyla Rose fan. She was touting her all over the place when they first brought her in earlier this year as the first trans athlete in AEW, all this other shit, which is great, but Brandy Rhodes seemed to be the highest honor of anyone, so I'm surprised she's not managing her as opposed to Awesome Kong. But anyway, does the storyline do anything for me? No, they're like, oh, she's suspended without pay for the rest of 2019. There's 3 weeks left in the fucking year, you moron. Who cares? At Reborn Again, John Ritland, as I mentioned earlier, check out his YouTube show, great stuff. And we're talking on Wrestle Rant Radio this week all about TLC, Into the Fire, etc., etc. So check that out. But anyways, first question was, what do you think will be the better show this week in NWA Into the Fire or WWE TLC? Honestly, TLC, the build has been shit. They just announced like the entire card within the last, no joke, 4 or 5 days, with the show being on Sunday. But it could be a good show. TLC is usually a pretty good pay-per-view. And it has been in recent years. I don't know if it's going to be must-see. Like the Rusev-Lashley match does nothing for me. Honestly, I'm way more excited for Into the Fire than I am Ring of Honor Final Battle and WWE TLC combined. I think it's going to be a great show. So definitely Into the Fire. Their shows so far have been pretty good. We haven't seen too many like wrestling shows from them so far. NWA Power was more about like promos and character development, a lot less about the matches. But the matches they have on tap seem to be pretty good. They have, Nick Aldis and James Storm in a 2 out of 3 falls match for the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. They have Mr. Anderson, versus Eli Drake. A tag team match with the women. They have Colt Cabana, Ricky Starks, and Aaron Stevens, the former Damian Sandow, for the NWA National Heavyweight Championship. So it looks to be a pretty good pay-per-view on paper. They have Stu Bennett, the former Wade Barrett, Bad News Barrett, doing the commentary, filling in for Jim Cornette, who was released a couple weeks ago. Got done talking about that about 2-3 weeks ago. But yeah, I think it's going to be a great show. I am looking forward to that pay-per-view more, and I do think ultimately it will be the better show of any of the pay-per-views from wrestling, from Ring of Honor, WWE, and NWA this weekend. His second question, what do you think made for worse television this year? Corbin's constant mundane presence or the Alana Lashley Rusev angle? Honestly, I gotta go the Lana Lashley Rusev stuff. I know the Corbin Reigns recent rivalry has been terrible. The match wasn't that bad, but like the dog's food stuff is just downright deplorable. I was floored when CM Punk defended it on Backstage this week. I was really shocked by that because that was a really stupid angle. That's the type of stuff that makes me embarrassed to be watching wrestling. But other than that, Corbin, honestly, I like Corbin. I think he's a great heel. I think he's one of their best pure heels in the company. I know, John, you definitely do not like him, but I think he can go in the ring. The King of the Ring run showed that. He had great matches with The Miz, great matches with Cedric Alexander, with Samoa Joe, Ricochet, Chad Gable. I've really enjoyed Baron Corbin, King Corbin in 2019 for the most part. I would not have had him be the one to end Kurt Angle's career at WrestleMania, but whatever. Baron Corbin, I've enjoyed him for the most part. The Rollins rivalry also fell flat. That was not a great feud at all, and the matches weren't really that good. But the Lana Lashley Rusev thing has been consistently terrible since it started. So I gotta go with that, absolutely. I think Corbin has upside. I've enjoyed him for the most part. Some stuff not so much. Overall, though, I think he's done he's played his role well, and I enjoy Corbin. But the Lana Lashley Rusev bullshit is just beyond terrible. His last question here, great question here. I was really looking forward to answering this one. Non-wrestling related question here, but what movies are you most looking forward to in 2020? Fucking love this question because I'm a big movie guy. And also, as you guys probably know, I'm big into Christmas movies, Star Wars, Marvel. If you've listened to the show for any stretch of time, you would know that those type of questions are also not off limits. I put wrestling related in the tweets and in the Facebook posts because I don't want shit on politics, which I'm sure you guys don't really care to hear me talk about anyway, which I honestly have no opinion on for the most part. So you're in luck, but no one's ever really done that anyway for the most part, so it doesn't really matter. But if you have any questions about that type of stuff, books, movies, stuff like this, I am more than happy to answer because I'm a big movie buff. Not as big as John Ritland and other people, but I would like to think I am in terms of movies that come out and movies I go out of my way to see. But anyway, movies I'm looking forward to in 2020, honestly, and moreover than anything, No Time to Die, the new 007 movie. I've been waiting for this 007 movie for a while. The originals are classics, obviously, but I'm a big fan of Daniel Craig's James Bond. I love Skyfall. That was one of my favorite movies in 2012, up there with the Dark Knight Rises and Avengers, the first one. Skyfall was amazing. Spectre wasn't as good, but it was still a very good movie overall, I thought, with Batista in there as the henchman. No Time to Die looks good too. Watch the trailer. It looks really, really good. I'm hyped for it. So, that's probably... I hate to say it, but that might be my most not that I hate to say it, but it might be my most anticipated movie so far, or as of right now, 2020. Because looking at the list of movies for stuff that's coming out in 2020, there's not a lot of stuff I'm like jumping, I'm salivating at the idea of seeing. There's a lot of good movies I'm looking forward to, like, oh, that could be good, or like, oh, that's exciting, or whatever. But, a lot of movies, not really. So anyway, No Time to Die would probably be number one. Ghostbusters, I'm cautiously optimistic for. Ghostbusters Afterlife, I watched the trailer the other day. It looks pretty good. It looks like a standalone film with ties to the original movie. And not the female version from a few years ago, which was fucking terrible. Not because it had female comedians in it and stuff like that, but because the movie itself was just genuinely bad. Not a good movie at all. But I think this sequel, not a reboot, a sequel, has potential to be good. Godzilla vs. Kong, I'm very much looking forward to that. I've been looking forward to that since since the original Godzilla movie in 2014 as part of the saga. Loved Godzilla. Godzilla 2 is even better. Kong, Skull Island, I really enjoyed that movie. So Godzilla Kong should be awesome. And unfortunately got bumped from like May to November, which is a long time. But I'm looking forward to it though. Halloween Kills, which is Halloween 2 from 2 years ago with Michael Myers. I forgot I didn't even know that was happening up until like a month or two ago. It was announced a while ago, but I had no idea about it until recently. That will likely come out in October. Looking forward to that. That looks awesome. I haven't seen any trailers, but the first one was really, really good. So I hope they can kind of maintain that mystique and momentum from the first one and carry that on to the second one. Speaking of which, Onward, the new Pixar movie. I know Alexis is looking forward to that. Pixar usually does really good jobs with their movies, so I'm sure Onward will be good. I know Chris, what's his name? The fucking guy from Star-Lord. God, it's going to bother me. I'm going to have to look up the cast real quick. This is the type of shit, like, when you're doing a show in front of your laptop, like, you can't help but not look up stuff because it's going to bother me after the fact. Onward. Let's see. Onward movie. With, let's see. Oh, Tom Holland and Chris Pratt. Yeah, they're the main characters being voiced. They're voicing the main characters in the movie. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I've seen the trailers. It looks pretty good. And then also Venom 2, which I think comes out next year. According to the IMDb or whatever website I looked at, that is coming out next year. No information on it at all. It may not be coming out next year, but it said it was. I guess Black Widow 2. I can't say that I'm most looking forward to that just because Black Widow has never really been my favorite character. I'm not even sure if there's any more Marvel movies coming out next year, which is kind of crazy. After having like 5 a year for the last 6 or 7 years, there's none next year except for Black Widow. It should be good. I'm just not overly anticipating it the same way that I am the other movies. Probably more than Onward and Venom 2, but yeah, those are the movies I'm looking forward to. I'm sure there's going to be more that I didn't know. Like, there's a lot of movies that I hear stuff about. I go check it out. I'm like, wow, that's good. Like, that was really good. Like, Peanut Butter Falcon was a very good movie that I had no idea about until it came out. The wrestling-related movie. And it was great. Enjoyed it a lot. At Scarlet1 from Twitter, we'll close out with their questions here. Best and worst of the Wednesday Night Wars, number 10. So from last week, I thought Dynamite was the slightly stronger show this week. Yeah, I thought it was the better show. The main event of NXT was good. Undisputed Era versus Lee, Dominic Dijakovic, and Tommaso Ciampa. I thought that was good. Matt Riddle and Ono had a pretty good match. Dakota Kai and Mia Yim did their thing. Trying to think of what else really even happened. On Dynamite, I know they had the Cody promo, which was good. The Jericho stuff is always the best part of the shows, hands down. The Bucks, were they on the show? Yeah, they had that opening 6-man tag team match, a very good match. They had Phoenix versus Trent, another really good match. Pentagon and Christopher Daniels, good match. The main event, what was the main event last week? Was it Pac? I don't remember. What was the main event on Dynamite? On AEW Dynamite last week. Let's see. Dynamite. What was last week? December. Damn. Dynamite. December 4th. Let's see. What was the main event? Because I don't remember. I know Jericho had his promo, but that wasn't the main event, though. They had, let's see here. Oh, Moxley and Joey Janela. I completely forgot about that. It was a good match. It wasn't my favorite match on the show at all. But yeah, I thought Dynamite was better this week. I'll probably be watching Dynamite first tonight. NXT last week, I don't really remember a lot about it. The worst, easily the Forgotten Son shit. That was fucking terrible. Anything with the Nightmare Collective was bad too. The Chris Statlander versus Hikaru Shida match. How could I forget about that? That was a great match too. The post-match stuff with the Nightmare Collective and the woman getting her head shaved like it was the fucking Straight Edge Society circa 2010 was fucking dumb. It was really stupid. So that was probably the worst, but of both shows. But overall, two very good shows on the whole. Once again, the best night in wrestling, hands down. Their next question here. Did you hear about Chad Gaspard's comments regarding ACH's antics? I did. I saw the Twitter response from Chad to ACH, and honestly, I don't disagree with them. A lot of people did, like, oh, back off, buddy. He has mental illness. First of all, do we know that for a fact? Like, I know he said he was depressed, but that's no reason to act like an asshole. Like, ACH was going off on a lot of people. Like, if he said he quit wrestling and that was it, and Chad was like, oh, stop being such a baby. Like, then I would be like, okay, dude, this has nothing to do with you. Chill off, like, cool off, calm down, whatever. Back off. In this scenario, though, ACH was going off on everybody. He was going off on WWE, Ring of Honor, the fans, this person, that person. He just went back to MLW. He seriously has something wrong with him. No one with a right mind would say the shit that he did on social media. He's got some issues. I know he said that he doesn't, but I would like to think that not like to think, but I imagine that he does, based off some of the stuff that he said in recent weeks and months. But Chad's response was perfectly justified. If you're going to say dumb shit on Twitter, then you open the floodgates for a lot of people to say dumb shit back to you. And I'm not even saying that what Shad said, excuse me, that's a tongue twister. What Shad said was dumb. I thought he kind of illustrated what a lot of people were already thinking. Like, dude, either suck it up or shut the fuck up, because you're going off on a lot of people here that are trying to help you and understand what's going on here, and you're not exactly doing anyone any favors. You're making yourself look like a jackass. and you're just acting like an asshole going off on everyone when not everyone's the issue. You're probably the problem here. So could he have taken up to him? Could he have, taken issue with that in private via a DM? Yeah, sure. I mean, maybe he has, and we have no idea. But honestly, what his response was no different than what ACH did, so I have no issue with it whatsoever. Their next question. X-Pac has interestingly stated that he has no desire to be a solo induction in the WWE Hall of Fame. However, how would you feel if WWE just inducted every team and stable he's been a part of, including X Factor, Million Dollar Corporation, 123 Kid, and Sparky Plug, etc.? You know what? Why the fuck not? Because everyone's a two-time Hall of Famer now. This is so fucking dumb. And this was another thing, along with the Charlotte stuff I talked about earlier, that really grinded my gears this week. Now, I love the NWO. I love Batista. I'm glad the NWO is going in. This has been rumored for like 5 years now. It's been rumored for a long time, so I can't say I'm surprised, okay? Hogan going in twice makes sense. Ric Flair going in twice makes sense. Bret Hart going in twice makes sense. When you get to people like Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, okay, you know what? If they want to induct the original three, that's fine. They're inducting X-Pac too. Why? Do people really look at X-Pac and go, wow, he was a founding member of the NWO? He wasn't. He was the sixth member of the fucking group. That's why they called him Six-Pac in WCW, because he was the sixth member added. Behind Big Show and maybe Ted DiBiase, maybe someone else. He was the sixth member. Why the fuck is he in there? Because he comes out to the NWO music sometimes and WWE? Get the fuck out of here. I thought that was so stupid. When the list gets down to X-Pac going in twice, I like Booker T, but come on. Booker T going in twice? X-Pac going in twice in 2 years is comical. It's legit comical. Because the guy is good. He should be in on his own. But for him to go in multiple times is a fucking joke. We already joked about in years past about people like, Coco Beware being in there, and Santino's going to go in at some point. Zack Ryder's going to be in there eventually. Everyone and their mother is going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, including Shelton Benjamin's mama. I'm sure Mama Benjamin will be inducted at some point as well. You know what? I came to accept that, whatever. The Hall of Fame doesn't really mean anything anyway. It's like a figment of the imagination of Vince McMahon. There's no actual hall for it. They have the money for it. They haven't done anything yet. We've heard rumors about it for years. They haven't done anything. They likely will not for a very long time to come. They have other priorities at the moment. But when you start inducting people like X-Pac twice is fucking stupid. It delegitimizes the entire thing. When people like... what's his name? Owen Hart and Brian Pillman haven't even been in once. X-Pac, though, is a two-time Hall of Famer. I'm sure it's not his fault, but the company making these type of decisions is fucking stupid. When people like that aren't even in yet. How the fuck did it take the Ultimate Warrior and Randy Savage and Bruno Sammartino to be inducted after 20 years? But it takes X-Pac 2 years to be inducted twice. Give me a fucking break. Last question of the day, also from Scarlet One. Thoughts on Vince McMahon's apparent new outlook on pay-per-view match cards and not feeling the need to announce so many matches in advance anymore? It's fucking dumb. It might be one of those phases, a lot like, oh, no wrestling during commercial breaks. And that's the Josh Matthews impersonation, but, oh, no wrestling during commercial breaks, yeah. And how long did that last? It was fucking dumb, and they ended up doing away with it because it was fucking dumb. This is also pretty stupid. It's a business model, so it's a little different. It's similar in certain ways, because it has to do with the shows. But Raw and SmackDown are completely thrown together, so it makes the shows worse. It makes me not care about the pay-per-views. I'm not sure why he woke up one day and felt like this, but it's also not a new thing. It's not, they haven't done this with every pay-per-view, because they announced a lot of matches in advance for the Survivor Series show, for the most part. They did this with Hell in the Cell too, where they had their mind in other events. At least then they had an excuse, because they were focused on the season premiere of Raw and the premiere of SmackDown on Fox and NXT moving to the USA Network and all this other shit, Total Divas, for to a lesser extent. But they completely forgot about the pay-per-view that weekend. So I get it. This weekend they have nothing. There's no fucking excuse for TLC's card to be thrown together at the literal last minute. Feuds feel rushed. There's no reason for there to even be a pay-per-view on Sunday. There's not. They should have had Survivor Series and then the Rumble. That's why I like NXT and probably the new pay-per-view model for AEW, having 4 shows a year every 3 or 4 months. I think that's perfect. I think that's excellent. With this, though, with WWE having a show every month, waiting until the last minute to add matches, is a fucking joke. When you have as many hours of programming as you do, there is no excuse to be announcing new matches for the card at the last literal minute. It's a fucking joke. So I'm not a fan of it. They'll probably get over it by the Rumble or Mania. I mean, they won't be adding last-minute matches to WrestleMania, obviously. But like the lesser shows, I could see them continuing to do this with, but it doesn't help the shows at all. It doesn't help the pay-per-views. It just makes everyone care less about what they're seeing. It hurts the superstars. It hurts everybody. So hopefully this is just a phase that passes, a lot like the dumb no wrestling during commercial breaks bullshit. And that's going to do it, guys, for episode 315 here today of #AskGSM. Interestingly enough, I just realized this, and this is so fucking cool. So you know how I said this is episode 315? Next week is episode 316. You know what December 18th is? Next week when we held the show again? Stone Cold Steve Austin's birthday. That's pretty fucking cool. I don't know if we're going to do anything to honor that. Probably not. It's just a cool coincidence. But that is a pretty damn cool coincidence nonetheless. But anyway, guys, we will be back next week. Standard show as usual. Like I said, 2 weeks from now will be a bit different. I'm going to try to record it on the Monday before Christmas, so the 23rd. I recorded the Thanksgiving one on the Tuesday, so this one will be even earlier on Monday if I have time in between, wrapping and shit like that. And Christmas shopping and whatever else. Watching Christmas movies, of course. But next week will be a standard show, so start sending in your questions now at WrestleRant on the Twitter machine with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/gram.gsm.matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not the wall itself. And be sure to drop a comment down below or drop a question down below in the comment section down below on this very video. And I'll include your question in next week's edition. So with all that being said, guys, thanks as always for checking out the show, all 315 episodes of it. Very much appreciate the support as 2019 quickly comes to a close. Enjoy the rest of your week. Go watch some Christmas movies. Like I said, I'll probably be watching either The Ultimate Christmas Present or The Santa Claus a little later on today ahead of NXT and Dynamite. So until next time, guys, go ride Santa's sleigh or some shit. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.